Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is Sunday. It's 12 o'clock. It's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all the questions that I've asked. I take all the questions that you've asked over the course of the week, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. Now, if you ask a question, please make sure that you leave it in the comments to this video, and try and get the questions in by Tuesday or Wednesday. It's actually Thursday today. I'm filming this a little bit later, but if you get the questions in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you're guaranteed they're going to be answered. If I miss them, I'm very sorry. Just ask them below and I'll get to it the next week. Now, for anybody who's never seen a Q&A before, I never look at the questions beforehand. I literally just sit down and go for it. And if any questions I think could be a meatier answer, I'll get into them the following week. Now, without further ado, okay, there's lots of questions. With that all being said, we're going to start off with this week's Q&A. Okay, so the first question is from Brava Kushel, and he says, "Hey Greg, great video as usual. I have a question. What are your top 3 YouTube channels?" What are my top 3 Magic YouTube channels? Well, that's a very good question. I'd have to say number 1, it's Lloyd Barnes. Huge Lloyd Barnes fan, always have been. As you know, I'm a very good friend of his, but his channel is amazing. The Sunday service that he does is just great. He's built such a huge community in such a really short period of time. And it's very different to any other YouTube channel out there. So I'd say definitely Lloyd. Also, I would say that would have to be top. In third place, I'd have to say, oh man, there's quite a few review channels these days that I really enjoy watching. Too many to mention. Obviously, you've got the OG, you got the one and only Magic Orthodoxy. He's great. Chris Edwards has started a YouTube channel doing reviews, which is really, really cool as well. Is it Nick Tan, I think, something like that? I can't remember. I've watched a couple of his reviews, been super impressed with his reviews. Obviously, you've got the legend himself, Mr. Steve Faulkner. So there's some great review channels up there as well. I kind of lump them all together. I don't watch them as much as I should because I don't like to have my reviews influenced by stuff that they're saying. But having said that, when I dip in and out of them, I'm always stuck. And what I like that David does from Magic Orthodoxy at the moment is he's doing a lot of other stuff that's not reviews, like analysing like the best wallets of all time and stuff, which I think is really super smart. So yeah, yeah, I'd say that. And in second place, I'd have to say Pig Cake. I'm a huge Pig Cake fan. Always have been. Think the guy's an absolute legend. His YouTube channel is very different to anything else out there. And he just really goes for it. It's great. Tyler Lunsford would be an honourable mention. Sorry, I was talking about Pig Cake. Yeah, Pig Cake is great. He's my sort of guy. I really, really, really like Pig Cake. So we're gonna throw him up there as well in second place. So first place Lloyd, second place Pig Cake, third place a whole bunch of review channels, and we're gonna throw Tyler in there as well. Tyler Lunsford's channel, I've always been a big fan of. I mean, there's so many out there, isn't there? There's so many channels that are really good, and there's more coming up all of the time. But I'd say those are my top. Okay, so the next question is from Alex Kilpatrick, and Alex says, "Hey Craig, what are your go-to effects when you happen to be a bit more inebriated than usual, than your audience?" What's my go-to effects when I'm absolutely wankered? Really great question. I talked about this the other day, actually. There's a trick that I love doing, and I think I would only do it when I'm drunk, which is a Simon Lovell trick, and it was on his VHS tape from a dog-eared deck. And the idea, it was a collection of routines with the deck that's absolutely mashed up. And the idea is that you have a card picked, control to the top, and then if you're in a bar, you just drop the deck into someone's pint, and he calls it the submarine card, and he shows his hand empty and reaches into the pint and pulls out the card. I've done that more than once when I've been absolutely wankered, so that's a really good trick. I tend not to be drunk at gigs, so the stuff that I do at gigs are just my set. A bit of mountain about with mates and, Blackpool or whatever it is. Normally I'll try to stay, if I'm with magicians and I've been drinking, I'll normally try to stumble through the hardest coin routine that I've ever seen, thinking I'm doing it absolutely flawlessly. That tends to be the thing that I normally do. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can think of that I tend to pull out when I'm actually drunk is the submarine card. Everything else just tends to go badly. You know, when I get offered a drink at a gig, a lot of the time my stock answer is, well, I'd love to, but, you know, I'll just have an orange juice or something. Because, to be honest, the more you drink, the better it looks. The more I drink, the worse it looks. And it's kind of true. So I like to keep my head straight when I'm at a gig, when I'm out with friends. If I'm at Blackpool and I'm performing and I'm drunk, I'll just stumble through something. You can tell. It's embarrassing. Okay, so the next question is another one by Biava Kushel, and he says, does Ryland perform magic in his school, and what tricks does he do? Yeah, he performs magic all of the time. They get him to do shows on a fairly regular basis, and he's gone in there and done illusion shows and cabaret shows and all sorts of stuff. But if he's just like going into school, he'll always have something in his rucksack bag. He'll always have his football cards, so he can trade his football cards. Huge football fan. But outside of that, he'll always have something. And it's normally something that he's working on. It's normally something new. There's not like one thing. Because he sees his friends every single day, he wouldn't bring the same thing in all the time and just do it. He always has a Rubik's Cube in there, but a lot of the time that's just to practice solving the Rubik's Cube. It's not necessarily to show people a magic trick. Although one thing that I've noticed, it doesn't matter how many times he does it, and maybe there's a lesson to be learned here. I'll go and pick him up at school and I'll have a big group of people around him. All of his friends will be around him, and then they'll go, yeah! And I'll look at what he's doing, and all he's done is solve the cube. And his friends are impressed at how fast he can solve a cube, legitimately. So he just has somebody mix up a Rubik's Cube and he just goes for it and solves it as quickly as he can. That tends to get, as far as I can see, I mean, I'm not in school with him, but as far as I can see, that gets the biggest reaction. But yeah, I mean, it's typically stuff that he's working on at any particular time. In all honesty, he's started to teach 2 or 3 of his closest friends a couple of simple magic tricks. And I asked him, I was like, oh, why did they ask? And he's like, yeah, they asked. And I'm trying to set up a little magic club. And one of the things, that for any dads out there that want to get their kids into magic, this is the worst thing about having a kid as a magician. The worst thing is, I don't want to say it's lonely, but it's kind of it is kind of lonely in a way for him, because he's got no friends that he can talk to. So magic, football, for example, he can go to school and he can talk to like-minded friends about football, and they can be talking all day about whatever it is that they're talking about. Same as something else they're into, like wrestling or superheroes. But magic, he can't talk to anybody about what he's doing, because A, it wouldn't make any sense to them, and B, they probably wouldn't be interested. Unless he was saying, hey, let me show you a trick, they wouldn't be interested in having a conversation about magic. And it's why we take him to so many conventions. We take him to so many conventions because it's a chance for him to be around other magicians. And he always leaves conventions just so revitalized and excited about everything. And it's one of the reasons that we take him to so many conventions. And, you know, he's not been old enough to go into the Young Magicians Club, which has been a bit of a pain for him, because he just wants to be around other magicians and talking magic. And he can talk to his dad about magic, and he can talk to people like Nemid about magic, and that's absolutely fine. But he can't talk to kids about magic. And I think, he hasn't said this, but I think that's one of the reasons why he's set up his own little magic club, so that you know, he can start talking to them about magic. So yeah, he's set up his own little magic club, and he's even set up a little curriculum. So, you know, when they meet, he's teaching them, right, okay, I'm going to teach them the cross-cut force this week, Dad. I'm going to teach them a trick to do with the cross-cut force. And he installs into them, practice, 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 don't give the tricks away. So it's quite sweet. But yeah, to answer your question, just, you know, whatever he's working on at any given time, to be honest. Okay, so the next question, excuse me. The next question is from Magician Edge. And Magician Edge says, hey, I have one quite specific question. You've done a lot of illusion shows. I've never done any illusions, but now I'm looking for one. There are times when the client asks if I can make their company boss or some other important person appear. What illusion would you recommend to me? Thank you. So there's lots of different ways of making somebody appear on stage, and it's a common upsell. I've got a corporate gig in a couple of weeks where we're making the CEO appear on stage, and we offer it as an upsell. Hey, if you pay X amount extra, we'll make your, you know, whatever, your bride appear on stage, the CEO, the VIP appear on stage. So it's a very common thing. There's lots of different ways of doing this. But in all honesty, if you've never done an illusion show before, there's so much you need to learn when you're doing illusions. There really is. And there's so much you need to take into consideration. So all of a sudden, when you throw an illusion into the mix in your show, you've now got to start thinking about music, because a lot of the time the music goes over the illusion to cover whatever's happening inside the illusion. You got to think about staging. You got to think about setup time. You've got to, and it's even worse with a VIP illusion, because if you're wanting to make the company boss or something appear, unless they're on a big stage and they've got wings, you kind of need to consider how you're going to do this. Like, because whatever method you use, it's not real magic. So that person has to be in place in that illusion before anything, before the people come into the room, right? So you need to think, well, when are you doing this? Like, for example, if I'll give you a perfect example of about 2 weeks ago. I did this big conference, and they wanted me and a couple of other magicians to do close-up magic during the conference, and then they wanted a show, and they wanted to open the show by making two people appear, which are the two sort of CEOs of the company. They appear, and they go and sit down, and then I do the rest of the show, and then I bring them back up again for them to give some awards out, right? Now, the problem is everything was taking place in this one room. And there was no stage, there was at all. There was no stage, it was kind of flat. There was an area that was designed to be the stage, but it was completely flat. There were probably about 150, 200 people in there. And they wanted it to take place after dinner. And people weren't going out the room and coming back into the room. And the two people in question were at the front table. So part of the reason I charge a lot more to do this is the logistics behind it. So I kind of thought, okay, well, if there was a kind of a doorway to the right-hand side of the stage that was out the way. So what I did is I was using a VIP production box. I backed the illusion up against that door because I realized there was another way to get to that door from a different area. So what I did is I backed it up against there. They were all having dinner, and just before the dinner finished, I'd already spoken to the guys about this beforehand. I went over there and I tapped them on the shoulder, and I had them go into the illusion from behind the scenes, and then I pushed it out onto stage, started the show, and everything went fine. That's not always a possibility. So, for example, if you've got a staged area and it's raised up, but there's no wings, I'm not going to be able to do that because I can't push the illusion and bring it up onto stage. So there's a lot of factors that you need to consider, both in terms of practicality and in terms of a whole bunch of other stuff. And from a logistical point of view, it's very much dealing with the venue and dealing with whoever it is that you're dealing with to make this a possibility. With that being said, so now you know the nightmare that you can have by making a VI. Oh, and then you've got to teach the person the trick. So you're going to have to get there early enough that you can grab them and teach them how to actually do this, which is another factor that you need to take into consideration. With that all being said, I tend to use a Guy Barrett VIP production box. Now, as far as I'm aware, he's only built 2 or 3 of these. He originally built it to make Torval and Dean appear on Dancing on Ice, the dancing program, whatever it is, the ice dancing thing that Sarah watches all the time and I don't. He originally built it for that, and if you Google Torval and Dean Las Vegas special, whatever it is, you'll see the illusion being used. And it's great because it's designed for up to like 3 or 4 people, and it's great. It's 360, no angles to consider, but it's big, it's heavy. Good grief, is it big and heavy? And it takes about 25 minutes to set up, and you have to have it set up on the stage. That's important. So the problem with this particular illusion is it's massive. So it's really important to have your technical rider in place before you actually do this illusion. Having said that, it's always my preferred way to make someone appear because it takes them 2 seconds to actually do it, learn how to do it themselves. All they have to do is stand in a box, and when they feel it move, walk forward. We do everything else for them. So it's minimal setup time in terms of the VIP that's in there. I can produce 3 or 4 people in there relatively easy. So if I want to make 2 COs appear in there, I can do. And, you know, the negatives of it being on stage and being a big prop aren't a problem in my show because I've got lots of big illusions. So it just kind of blends in. They're going to give me a big space anyway. And that's what I asked for in my technical rider. So that's the best way to do it. You can get that from Guy Barrett. If you want a smaller, more compact version, there's that thing with you can get a door frame. I think you can get it built, or you could probably make it. I mean, it's in, I think, Mark Wilson's Magic Course, I think it is, you know, the Mark Wilson book. And it's basically what it looks like is a doorway, and you open the door and there's a curtain there, right? And then when you open the curtain, it looks empty and you can walk through it, all the way through it. And then you close the curtain, and when you close the curtain, you then close the door. You snap your fingers, you open the door, you open the curtain, and the person appears there. It's great. It's really great. How it works is the frame is built off the floor, right? So it's built slightly off the floor, so you can see underneath the whole time. And basically what happens here is there's a lip that somebody stands on the back side of the door. So the idea is that they're standing there on that lip. You can push this in from the side because it's on casters. And then what happens is it's just literally a door frame. So you open up the door, and when you open up the door, the person that's standing behind the door just walks over to behind the door, right? And then you immediately open the curtain. Well, they can't see anything because they're standing behind the door. You then walk through the door a couple of times. You close the curtain. When you close the curtain, they walk back behind the curtain. You close the door, and then when you open the door and the curtain, they're there. Really great illusion. The only problem is, obviously, as you can imagine, it's probably a 180 viewing angle, if that. So if you've got people, if you're performing on the round, if you've got people everywhere, or you're performing from the side, which can happen a lot at corporate events, you've got like tables at the side, and you might have to perform on a dance floor, and they'll see exactly what's going on. So that's a really great illusion if you've got the audience in front of you, or if you're on a stage, or you're in a raised area. It's also not very heavy, and it's basically just a door, so it doesn't cost much to make up. But yeah, that's a really practical version as long as you're in control of the angles. The one other thing that I'd say is Paul Rohamani, many years ago, bought out a suitcase table, which I built for the Wizard Pro Review, and I've got it in my warehouse downstairs, and I've used it a few times. And it's a table. It looks like a table that you'd have in an office or something like that. And you walk on with a suitcase, and you put the suitcase onto the table. And then you open up the suitcase, and the person inside, and it looks like someone's just climbed out the suitcase. And I used to use that to open my illusion show. Russell, my old business partner, used to be in there, and I'd walk on stage at the beginning with a suitcase, put the suitcase on the table, open up the suitcase, and he'd climb out. And if you look back at my very first show reel for the illusion show, you'll actually see that illusion being done. And it's really cool, but again, it has to be set up on stage. You have to get the person in there beforehand. There's no angle issues to consider, but it has to be somebody slight inside the illusion. It can't be somebody big. They just won't fit in there. So there's a lot of factors to consider, but if you get the right person, it does look really good. It looks like you just carry that suitcase in. And you can see that on the Wizard Pro Review. Paul Rohamani still sells it, I believe. But anyway, I've spent enough time on this question. Hopefully that answers your question. It's a really cool upsell to do. But to be honest, before you start worrying about producing VIPs, I'd put an illusion show together, or at least do more bigger stage pieces before you get your first VIP production. Okay, the next question is from Sting. And he says, great Q&A again, thank you very much. My question would be if you would make an update for your best EDC items. Yeah, I've got a new list coming out. I've got a new list coming out very soon, actually. So I've done 2 of them now. I think the first one was the 12 best everyday carry items you've ever seen, and then there was a second one, even more EDC items. There were 2 of them, and I'm just in the middle of putting a third one together. I think it's probably going to hit next week. So look out for that. But yeah, I am doing a third video on different EDC items that you won't have seen before. So, and it's going to be an updated list with some really cool stuff that I'm going to go through for you. So look out for that. It'll probably be dropping in the next week or 2, but thanks for asking the question. Okay, the next question is from Adrian Suter. How you doing, Adrian? Hey, Craig, great Q&A. I have a question this week. You once said that many magicians don't use the crosscut force. They don't, although it works really well for lay audiences. Do you have any other examples of methods that are considered by magicians, that are underestimated by magicians because they consider them to be too simple? For sure, yeah. I mean, a perfect example of that is the Svengali deck. Like at some point, I'm going to be bringing out a Svengali deck project with the 1914. And when I do, you'll see I've got a massive collection of material with the Svengali deck. Like I do so much with it, and I've taken it in a very different direction to anything that you've seen before. In fact, on my masterclass through Vanishing Ink, you'll see a sneak peek of that. There's a routine on the masterclass, which I personally think is worth the price of the whole masterclass on its own. And it's a Svengali trick, and it just floors everybody. It's a very interesting use of the Svengali principle. So I'd say a Svengali deck is something that a lot of magicians overrate, underestimate. And on that subject, I'd also say the Mirage deck. A lot of people lump the Mirage deck and the Svengali deck into the same thing. Totally different. Totally different. I've got a stack of routines with the Mirage deck that are very different to the routines that I do with the Svengali deck. There's advantages and disadvantages for me of the Mirage deck and the Svengali deck, and you see a lot of magicians that don't do either because it's too simple. And I think that that's not. I think that's not the case. And I think that hopefully when I start, well, if you check the masterclass out, that'll give you a sneak peek of some of the stuff I do with these decks. But I think you'll be very impressed. Also, another trick, not so much a method that's underestimated, but another trick is dynamic coins. Dynamic coins for me is something that I've always loved performing, and a lot of magicians don't perform it because they consider it a beginner trick. And I've actually gone out and done dynamic coins at gigs, and it fries because I use it in a very different way. So even if you know what the gimmick is, you're still just baffled. Having said that, Lloyd has got something coming out very soon called Pro Caps, which is an evolution of the dynamic coins, and it's incredible. And I was a part of that project, and you're going to see more about that in the coming couple of weeks. But Pro Caps is brilliant, and yeah, when it comes to dynamic coins, I really think it takes it to the next level. But that's an example of something that I think magicians overlook. In terms of methods, I think magicians kind of sometimes shy away from the French drop. The French drop for me is still one of the best coin vanishes out there. And I think a lot of magicians, they don't really bother with the French drop because there's so many other ways to vanish a coin. And I've heard magicians say, oh, it's because laymen know this action of making a coin disappear. But the French drop for me is amazing, and it's something that I still use all of the time. And I think we're seeing a pattern here. And the pattern is, if magicians perceive that lay people already know about a principle or a move or something like that, then they'll shy away from it. And that's a shame, because there's so much you can do with those principles and those routines and those tricks. And as I say, they are just as valid today as they were back in the day. So yeah, it's a great question. I can't think of any more right now, but to be honest, after I've finished filming, I'll probably think of about another 100 or 200 ideas of different things that magicians overlook. But yeah, I mean, depending on the magician you speak to, you know, I've heard magicians say, oh, Elmsley counts. Don't do an Elmsley count. It's done to death. I don't do an Elmsley count. Well, for me, it's not about the move. It's about what you can do with it. And the cross-cut force is a perfect example. It is such a clean way to force a card. If you think about it, there's hardly a cleaner way to force a card out there. It's just that a lot of people overlook it. So it's a great question. But yeah, hopefully that answers it. Okay, so the next question is Rob Magic 101, and Rob Magic says, hey Craig, keep up the good work on one of the best YouTube channels for magicians. Thank you. I have a question though. I have implemented the majority of the items you mentioned with regards to magic societies. However, the last meeting we had the turnout, it was quite poor, probably something to do with not being a lecture. How would you encourage members to attend meetings that are not lectures and more sessions? Don't get me wrong, I like a good lecture, but sometimes I find I learn more sessioning. But how would you encourage more members to attend a physical meeting when it's not a lecture? I think the way to do this, Rob, would be simply to theme each, well, there's a couple of different things. And the first thing to do would be to theme each meeting, okay? So to have a theme about it. So, for example, just because there's no lecture, it doesn't mean it always has to be, it doesn't mean you have to go for either a session or a lecture and that's it. You can arrange an eclectic thing, range of activities. I tend to find, at least in the clubs that I've been to, competitions tend to go really, really well. You know, people come out in force for competitions because they like watching other people compete. So think about that. Could you do like a Penn and Teller Fuller style thing and have one of the more knowledgeable or a couple of the more knowledgeable magicians in your club try to be fooled by some of the other members that have got to come in and try and fool them? That would be a fun thing to do. I know if I was in a club and that was advertised, I'd probably do it. A lot of clubs local to me, they have something called a pocket tricks drive, which isn't necessarily a formal close-up competition, but it's just kind of like the members circulate around and show each other one trick, a close-up trick that you'd have in the pocket, and then somebody is crowned a winner. That's quite good because it's a close-up competition without being a close-up competition, so there's less pressure on the members. That's a really fun thing for them to do as well. And then the other thing is, I wouldn't just advertise it as a session. One thing that I know about magicians is they like talking about themselves, right? And they like showing how knowledgeable they are. So you could have sessions, but instead of calling them sessions, you could have them sort of tailored to a specific thing. So it might be, for example, right, next week we are going to have a coin magic session, and we're going to be talking all about coin magic. So we want you to bring your coins, and even if you've got no experience at coins, what we're going to do is we're going to try and get you to a position where you can actually start going out and performing coin magic. Bob is going to teach you his version of the gypsy switch, which is a fantastic switch with a coin and a handkerchief, and he uses it in a transposition. James is going to teach you his version of the 3-coin trick, and then we're going to get Fred, and he's going to teach you his coins across. So it's going to be super exciting. Remember, make sure you bring your coins with you, and any questions that you've got. And if you want to teach some of coin magic that you know, then please let me know. We'd love you to teach that as well, or something along those lines. Then do one on rubber bands. So make it so that it's almost like a mini lecture, but being delivered by the members. So in reality, it's actually a session, but it's a more formal, structured session as opposed to everyone turning up and just having a free-for-all. That's probably the way that I would go with that. But Rob, try it and see what you think. And if it doesn't work, come back to me and I'll fire a few more ideas at you. Okay, so the next question is from Philip Austin. Philip says, Craig, thanks for answering my question on your remembering ability. I don't remember what you asked, so you're more than welcome. No, I'm joking, I do. My question, when you do weddings or gala dinners, say 10 to 12 tables, do you do them by yourself or do you have a sidekick to ensure everyone gets a minimum of 10 minutes of performance? I've done a few dinner gigs and I find it hard to get around all 12 tables in the time allocated when you're by yourself. Keep the magic alive. Regards, Phil. So, great question. I'd never take a sidekick unless somebody's booked 2 magicians. Because I run slightly unusual, I do offer as an upsell 2 magicians if they want to take that as an option, or 3 magicians or 4 magicians. And if somebody inquires, and they inquire for close-up magic, and let's say one of the questions that we ask when we're qualifying the lead, and I don't want to get too much into this because this is marketing speak and this is kind of more for the Netrix, but when somebody's calling up, the first thing to do is to qualify them and figure out exactly what they're doing so you can pitch them with the right information, right? And one thing I do when I'm qualifying the lead is I ask them how many people are going to be there, roughly, and how many tables and what the environment's going to be and so on and so forth. So if they turn around to me and they say there's 120 people spread out over 10 to 12 tables, I'll say, okay, no problem. Let me tell you right now, and I'll tell them how close-up magic works and what I can do for them. And I can say, now, in all honesty with you, you can book 1 magician or 2 magicians for this. Now, if you, we typically say that if you're going to have over 80 or 90 guests, it's best to have 2 magicians because that way we're definitely going to be able to get around everybody. And if, you know, people want us to go back, we can. If you book 1 magician, that's fine. But that 1 magician is going to have to hustle in order to get around every table. We're not going to be able to spend too long with each table because we want to try and get around everybody. And I give them the option, right? Then I personally, when I'm performing close-up magic, I don't like to be the guy that is clock watching. So, you know, if I'm at a gig and let's say I'm there on my own and there's 12 tables, and let's say, and I'll try to structure how long I've got at each table to make sure I nail it. So if I've got 12 tables and I'm there for 2 hours, what I'll do is I'll say to myself, okay, so I've got let me think here. So 2 hours, I've got 12 tables. So I'm going to have to spend X amount of time at each table, factoring in leaving that table, going to the next table and introducing myself. Right, okay, boom, let's do this. And I'll be really organized about all of this. But let's say I get to the end of the 2 hours and I've missed a table or 2 tables. As long as I don't have another gig to get to, and typically I'll organize the calendar so I don't have a rush, although that's not always possible. I'll stick around for a few minutes and I'll make sure those tables are being done. It's kind of more important to make sure that the client's happy and that everyone gets a chance to see what I do. But no, I'd never take a sidekick. I'd never take somebody else with me unless they booked somebody. And you want to make it very clear in the contract that you send them that you'll try your best to get around everybody. But obviously it very much depends on the time that you've got and the amount of guests that they have there. So hopefully, Philip, that answers your question. So the next question is from the Kitchen Magician, and the Kitchen Magician says, "Hey Craig, why is there so much toxicity and trolling in the magic community in the forums and YouTube comments? I see so many magicians just trolling a creator, exposing the trick. For what? Why must they comment and expose the effect? It ruins the mystery for everyone else, and quite honestly, it's just really annoying. It's really bad everywhere in the community. It's turning many inspiring magicians away from creating more tricks or content. Your thoughts?" Okay, so my thoughts. See so many magicians just trolling a creator, exposing the trick for what? Why? Well, yeah, here's the thing. I see it an awful lot. I see it on the latest and greatest in the cafe, which always baffles me. The latest and greatest in the cafe. I think it serves a great purpose. But I think there's too much talk about methods, and I don't think that's fair on the creators. You know, they're guessing how the method works, and I just don't think that's fair, to be perfectly honest. I don't think that's right. You know, if you read the quantum deck thread, all 50 pages, by about page 20, you'd probably know exactly how the trick worked. And it's frustrating. From a creator's point of view, it's very frustrating that we're in a situation where, you know, within days of it being released, people are openly talking about method. But there's nothing you can do about it from a creator's point of view. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. In terms of the toxicity and why people make comments on Facebook groups and YouTube videos, in all reality, it's normally to make themselves look clever, to make themselves look big and look clever. Because here's the thing, a lot of magicians have inferiority complexes. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. A lot of magicians have inferiority complexes. They also have, a whole bunch of other stuff going on that I'm not even going to get into now. And when somebody comments on a trailer and goes, "I know how that's done. It's a double lift and a gaffed card," what they're trying to say is, look how clever I am. I'm so clever. I'm the cleverest person in the world. Now, in reality, that person has never released their own product. They will never release their own product, and they will probably never amount to anything in the world when it comes to magic, because, you know, if they did, they wouldn't be making silly comments like that. Unfortunately, it just happens, and I try to avoid it. I'm one of these people that gets obsessed over comments and negative comments. I try to avoid it wherever possible, and I try to push it out of my head. But sometimes, if I see something, I'm like, "Grr." And you know, I've got into arguments online in the past. I mean, it's happened recently. I get into arguments online in the past just because I like to stick up for myself, and I do find it very frustrating, really frustrating, when people expose the trick just to make themselves sound cleverer. And it is, you say here, it's really annoying. And it turns people away from creating. Yeah, I know there's a lot of creators that I know have stopped creating because of this very issue. I know, I could tell you at least 3 people that are incredible creators that have brought tricks out that are really good, that are not creating anymore because they just cannot be bothered dealing with the method being exposed by people in the comments to YouTube and Facebook and the Magic Cafe and so on and so forth. There's nothing we can do. We just have to accept it. It's just par for the course. across. You know, the people in the cafe will go, oh, but this forum's allowed to talk methods. And I just think it's a complete and total exposure, and it's not fair on the creator. But you see it happening over and over again, and there's nothing you can do about it. Why does it happen? Your original comment is, why is there so much toxicity? I just think it's because people are trying to be clever. They're trying to show that they know how the trick's done. Like, that will make them feel like Jimmy Big Bollocks. I don't know. I don't know what the reason is. In terms of the Magic Cafe, I think that there's a percentage of people on there that are genuinely just discussing, trying to maybe work out how it's done or something. I don't think they think they're doing anything wrong, but I do think that it gets taken too far on the Magic Cafe, and it gets to a point where they're just blatantly talking about the method, and when the trick is what people are buying realistically is the method and the secret. I don't think that's really fair. But, you know, there's going to be people that disagree with me, but, you know, that's my answer to your question. So the next question is again by the Kitchen Magician, and he says, can you do the best worst tricks of 2022 video? I love your reviews. Yes, absolutely. It's a tradition here at Magic TV that we do that at the end of the year. So towards the end of the year, we're going to have a best of list. We're going to have the best tricks of 2022, the worst tricks of 2022. We do a little awards thing as well. So look out for that. That'll be coming probably at some point over December. The next question is from Mago Antonio, and he says, great video as usual. I remember you saying that some time ago in some videos that once this channel had more than 10,000 subs, you'd create a channel about marketing for magicians. I'd love to learn more about marketing from you. Is that project still alive? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Yes, but I decided not to do it as a YouTube video, just because every time I put a marketing video on YouTube, it got terrible views compared to everything else. And it's kind of like, as a creator of content, why put my time and effort into something that a very small percentage of my audience are finding interesting? You know, I'd rather create content that everybody is interested in. So what I did instead is I created a silver level of the Netrix, and everything that I do from a business point of view gets put into that group. So I've currently got tons of videos on everything to do with business, sales, business, marketing. I'm uploading new stuff all the time. I'm uploading interviews with some of the best business people in business, talking about stuff like LinkedIn and YouTube and so on and so forth. I'm now doing critiques on people's websites as well. So I'm taking people's websites within the silver level. I'm doing a live critique and putting it up as a course so that people can see what should happen with their website and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So, you know, there's a load of stuff that I'm doing, but it all happens within the silver level of the Netrix, which is, by the way, www.thenetrix.com. And because there's a community attached to that, I tend to find that that's a better place to discuss business than just sticking it on YouTube, where like a very small percentage of magicians are actually interested in that stuff. So if you are interested in business, it all takes place on the silver level of the Netrix. Okay, next question is from Chris Ash, and Chris says, thanks for replying, Craig. I might just take you off on the offer. You're more than welcome, and please do. Question, what trick effect do you have the most sentimental attraction to, or attachment to? That would be the coins across, man. That would be the coins across, the first phase of the monster coin routine from Parlor and the Netrix. And the reason is very, very simple. When I met Sarah, and that's a whole story for another thing, but I didn't do any magic for her on the first date. She knew I was into magic, but I never did any magic. The second date, however, we met in Solihull at the Touchwood Centre, and we're going to go to the cinema. I even remember the film. It was that Tom Cruise film, The Last Samurai. And we met in a bar, and then we were going to get food, and then we were going to go to the cinema, and then get drinks. And we met in a bar. And she was running late. I thought she'd stood me up, but she got blocked in at her house. But she met me at the bar, and she came running in, all sorry and everything. I was like, hey, don't worry about it. And we grabbed a drink, and she said, so are you going to show me a trick then? I was like, yeah, I'll show you a trick. And I showed her that routine. I showed her coins across. And if you ever speak to Sarah, she'll tell you that that is her favourite trick that I do, because she says that at that moment, that's what made her go, wow. But, you know, she found it really, really impressive. And then obviously spent 15 years with me, had a kid magician, and now gets frustrated every time I'm going to say, hey, let me show you a trick. But that trick has got a special place in my heart. And I don't know whether we would be where we are if it wasn't for me doing that trick. Maybe we would be, maybe we wouldn't. I don't know. But I choose to think very positively about that coins across. So I love it. and it's the very first trick I ever performed for Sarah. Okay, so the next question is Danny in Asheville, and Danny in Asheville says, during walkarounds and weddings and events, etc., how much time are you usually contracted for? Typically, for me, it's 2 hours. I know there's a big thing going on in the UK at the moment about being a magical MC at events like weddings and corporate events where you're there literally all day and you're MCing the whole thing. That's a conversation for another time. If I'm doing close-up, typically it'll be 2 hours. If somebody wants to book an hour, I'll push them towards 2 hours because the price is the same for 1 hour or 2 hours. And, you know, if there's a lot of people or if it's a full day thing and they want me longer, that's absolutely fine. Obviously with stage magic that changes. If they're booking close-up magic and a stage show, that changes. But your typical close-up gig, your typical close-up performance will typically be 2 hours. Okay, so the next question is from Michael Pilkey. How you doing, Michael? Hope you're well. Are you going to be re-releasing any more of your older work? I really love the Mirage Coin Set Extreme, and I'd love an updated Split Happens or Flipped Out project. And then he has another thing saying, really want to see a re-release of the Nightshade Coin Set. Flipped Out has been filmed with Penguin. I don't know when it's coming out. I never know with Penguin when stuff's coming out. But I filmed the whole Flipper Coin project. I called it Reflipped. I updated the handlings of all of the routines off Flipped Out. I added a whole bunch of new routines as well. And we got live performances in Columbus. That is done from my point of view. I have no idea when it's coming out, but I know that it's filmed. From my point of view, Penguin have everything that they need to make that happen. The Split Coin project, an updated Split Happens. Yeah, at some point down the line, I hadn't considered that, but at some point down the line, I'm sure that's something that I could do. And a re-release of the Nightshade Coin Set. Well, you know, we re-released the Mirage Coin Set, and off the back of that, Alakazam have brought out the Mirage range of coins. And I know they want to have the Mirage range of coins, including they want to have that Mirage range, have a whole bunch of really nice high-end coin sets that are designed for workers. And the Nightshade coin set is definitely a nice coin set designed for workers. I suppose all I'm saying, Michael, is watch this space. Okay, so the next question is from Justin Hutchins, and Justin says, hey Craig, thanks for answering my question on the cull last week. It was really helpful. You're more than welcome, man. My question today is, I saw your Penguin live, which, by the way, is one of my favourites so far, and I can't believe some idiot was saying anything negative about it. Hey, it's his opinion. You know, he's allowed to have the opinion. I wonder when he's going to release his Penguin live. Good question. In this lecture, Eric Tate said you've done a project called Thud. Is this something coming out, or can you say anything about it? I got myself a large ball bearing so I can learn your great sponge routine. Just looking for other uses of large ball bearings or even multiple ball bearings. I think it's a really cool object. Cheers. Yeah, I love ball bearings. I love ball bearings. And I have a project coming out called Thud. Again, like the previous question, this is being filmed with Penguin. It is a collection of routines with ball bearings, giant ball bearings, the sort of thing that you would use in sponge. There's a bunch of routines on there, including the main Thud routine, which I've only lectured live once, which was at the session, and everybody absolutely loved it. And I know there's a lot of magicians that are out there doing it, having seen Thud. So yeah, it's coming soon. I don't know when, I have no idea. But if you like routines with ball bearings, this is very different to the stuff on Thud, but if you like routines with ball bearings, I can't tell you anything more about it yet. But I highly, highly, highly advise you to go pick up my masterclass with Vanishing Ink, which is the December masterclass. If you want to learn routines with ball bearings, go and check out the masterclass. That's all I'm saying. So the next question is from Brian Binns, and he says, hi Craig, thoroughly enjoyed your channel. Big thumbs up to the Matt test segments. You mentioned earlier you were going to teach Matt a magic routine and send him out on a gig. Do you think it might spoil some of the spontaneity and enthusiastic responses from him on the Matt test once he knows the basics? Would it spoil the enjoyment for him as well? Not everyone wants the magic spoils. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking yes to teaching him magic, because he desperately wants to learn magic. You know, I mean, that's the thing. He wants to learn magic. And I think it'd be a really interesting thing having a documentary series, Matt, Muggle to Magician. I think that'd be amazing. And I don't think it would ruin the effect on him, because he absolutely loves magic, but we'll see. Could you also tell me the name of the force that you use when you cut small packets of cards off the deck, forcing a card such as the Six of Hearts, as you did in the Flick Wallet video with Matt. Thanks. Do I have a deck of cards? I don't have a deck of cards. Is this a deck of cards? This might be a deck of cards. Is this a deck of cards? No, it's not. Wait there. Okay, I'm back. What you're talking about here is a timing force. I've been doing this since I was like 18. I don't know where I learnt it from. It's a very, very, very old force. I'll very quickly go through it with you now. Let's say you want to force the Nine of Hearts. So the whole idea of it is, you say to somebody, I'm going to cut small packets of cards onto the table. Anytime you want to, just say stop. And they say stop, and when they stop on the Nine of Hearts. The concept behind it is timing. So you cut a small packet of cards, say 15 cards into your hand. I tend to cut them over, and then these cards go on top holding a break. Okay. So now it's all in the scripting. So you say, I'm going to cut small packets of cards onto the table. And as you say that, you drop the first packet on the table. You put small packets, so you're still holding the break. And you say, as I cut small packets of cards onto the table, you cut a second one. I want you to say stop anytime you want. You cut a third packet. Anytime you want. Now I cut a fourth packet, so I'm ready to cut to the break. Then on the next cut, I'm going to cut to the break, and I'm not saying anything here, and they can see that I've not got many cards left. So I'm going to cut to the break. Now, more often than not, they're going to stop there, in which case I show them this one. If they don't, I cut another packet, and they can see I've got hardly any cards left, so they're going to say stop there, in which case I show them this one. And I'll tell you what happens in a second if they don't do that. So in performance speed, it's like this. I'm going to cut small packets of cards onto the table. As I do, anytime you want to, just say stop. There. There. Nine of Hearts. There you go. So again, I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut small packets of cards onto the table. As I do, anytime you want to, just say stop. There. That card. Now, if they don't say stop at this point, and you've got these here, you just show and you say, well, I've got no cards left. And you use them to scoop up the deck so that you're back in this position. And then you cut over again and you say, look, remember, say stop before I get to the end. And as I say that, I cut 3 packets really quickly. And then I immediately cut to the break because they're going to say stop very quickly this time. And when they do, you just show this one. Or if they don't and they leave it a bit, you show this one. But every single time, I rarely have to go into doing it a second time. 99 times out of 100, you nail it on the first time. If you don't, you'll get it on the second time. But in full speed, I'm going to cut packets of cards onto a table. Anytime you want to, just say stop. There. You want to stop on there? Boom. So there you go. It's called the timing force. And it's a really great force. And I've seen so many different applications of the timing force. I use it with a Rubik's Cube routine to do a Rubik's Cube matchup effect with a tattoo. There's so many different ways that you can use a timing force when you're performing for real people. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, it's I don't know the name of it. I just refer to it as the timing force. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so the next question is from Dan Ryan. Dan says, did I hear a sauna? I'm sure I remember a DVD of yours that looked like it was filmed in a sauna. Yeah, years ago, I bought out a DVD called Slim and we filmed it in the gym. And then the weirdest moment of my life was filming a trick. It was a matrix with holes. Sunbed Matrix, I think it was called. And I filmed it with me and Stephen Leithwaite, half naked, inside a sauna. Just the weirdest experience I've ever had in my life. Weird. But yeah, that was a David Penn idea. Blame him for that. Yeah, nobody wanted to see me and Stephen Leithwaite half naked, let me tell you that. It was a good trick, though. Okay, so the next question is from Vinavist, and Vinavist says, hi Craig, great video as always, thank you. I'm thinking of combining Triumph Kicker and Quantum Deck together into one routine. I perform Triumph Kicker, and then the backs turn blank, and then I head into Quantum Deck. For this to work, I need to perform a deck switch. I've seen you perform a few deck switches without any special props, but I wanted to not put the cards in a card case. In your opinion, what's the best deck switch out there on the market? Well, a lot of them do use card cases. I mean, the Cooler is a deck switch that's absolutely amazing. I love the Cooler, I really do. It's great. The Cooler is fantastic, but it's like more of a formal parlor type deck switch. Greg Wilson has a great deck switch as well that's really good. But again, it doesn't work in every environment. It just works in certain environments. The best deck switch to do, in my opinion, is a pocket deck switch. You just put the deck in your pocket. You have a divider in your pocket, so you just have a piece of card in your pocket that divides the two halves of the pocket, like your outside right jacket pocket. And then all you do is you drop the deck into the one side and pick the other deck up from the other side. Now, all you need to do is you just need to have a reason. So I'm just switching that off. All you need to do is have a reason for going into your pocket. So now you have to ask yourself a question. What's the reason to go into your pocket at the end of Triumph Kicker? So think about it, because what you're going to do is you're going to put both hands in your pocket as if you're searching for something. So Triumph Kicker is finished. Both hands go into your pocket as if you're searching for something. And when you do, you want to tell them that you're going into your pocket first of all. So you want to say, hey, let me just grab this. Because if you just throw your hands in your pocket for no reason, it becomes suspicious. But if you tell them you're going in your pockets, it doesn't do. And then your other hand comes out with the object first, because all the focus is there, and then this hand comes out, and it's almost, because it's outside of the frame of action, no one really kind of pays that any attention. But it lives and dies by having a reason to go into your pocket. So a couple of reasons, and this might not work in your routine, and you have to think about it from your routine's point of view, but maybe you have the card case in there. And so after you finish Triumph Kicker, you say, I'm just going to grab the card case, and you go and grab the card case, you bring it out as if you're going to put the cards away, and you go, actually, and you put the card case to one side, can I show you one more thing with these cards? Would that be okay? Now they're blank. For example, that could work really, really well. Just going into the card case. Maybe you want to do, there's a routine on the Quantum deck called Fade Away, where all of the ink fades away. And I actually do a deck switch on the Quantum deck project using this exact method, and I go in for an elastic band. So I go in for an elastic band, so maybe you're going to band the deck up. So actually I can do one more thing, but to prevent sleight of hand, I'm going to wrap an elastic band around this deck. So maybe that's the route that you go. You're going into your pocket to get an elastic band. Depending on the style of performer you are, maybe you're going into your pocket to get a little magic wand to give to somebody. I don't know. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but the easiest deck switch, in my opinion, is one where you're just switching the deck in your pocket. Okay, so the next question is from Mike Tyson by TKO. Thanks so much for the Man Cave tour. You're more than welcome. Really appreciate the video. Thank you very much. How about the return of Bray Wyatt? Has to be one of the top 5 returns, right? Yeah, absolutely, man. Extreme Rules was incredible. Really enjoyed it. Bray Wyatt being back is great. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Triple H is smashing it out the park right now. It's such a refreshing breath of fresh air. I loved on Raw the following night. I loved the return of Brock Lesnar, and there's a lot of intrigue there as to whether Lesnar is a face or a heel, or Lashley is a face or a heel. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to unpick. Really, really like that. There's a lot. And oh my God, you know, the OC coming back, you know, I didn't see that coming out of anywhere. You know, like AJ just having the, oh, wow. That was awesome. And isn't Gallows like a champion in another organization at the moment? I mean, the fact that they've brought him into the WWE and he's a champion in another organization, it just shows that their head is completely going in a different direction with this. And I think that, you know, Triple H and Shawn Michaels has a lot to, a lot to play with that. And I think that they're really doing well right now. Okay, so the next question is Jack Gatt, and Jack says, hi Craig, question for next week. Have you a technique for turning a deck over while keeping a pinky break? Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be a pinky break anyway, to keep a break while turning the deck over. Cheers. The way I do that, and luckily I've still got my trusty pack of cards, the way I do that, man, is very, very simply, let's say that we want to have a pinky break in the middle of the deck, right next to the colourful joker, right? So I do it like this. I literally just turn the deck over like that, and I've still got the break right there. So how this works is you grab your break. So you got your pinky break, and what you're going to do is you're going to come over with the right hand, and you're going to transfer that pinky break to a thumb break. Okay, so in other words, you're going to transfer that pinky break to a thumb break, but your pinky is going to stay in the break. But it's going to become more of a wedge break, as if you're going to do a pass. It's going to go in all the way there like that. Okay, so you've got your pinky break there, you come over with the thumb, you're holding a thumb break, and then you transfer that pinky break to a wedge break. Now in the same continuing action, your right hand and your left thumb flips the deck over, and you can see that as the deck is being flipped over, your little finger is in there. The wedge brake is holding that brake there. So again, back to this. You come over like that. I'm now holding the brake basically like this, okay? So again, I'm here holding the brake like this. In the same continuing action, I take my hand out, and that's why the thumb's there. I take my hand out, and the thumb is still holding the brake, and then I immediately re-grip and put the little finger back in place. So in full speed, it just looks like that. It looks like I'm just turning the deck over. That's the way that I've always done it. There might be a more elegant way, but for me, the key thing with sleight of hand is it should replicate what it would look like. And from my point of view, if I'm holding a brake here, just turning the deck over like this, that's what it would look like if I was going to turn the deck over. And I've still got the brake. So that's the way I do it. And I'm pretty sure that's, I can't remember who I first saw do that. I think I first saw JC Wagner do that. But I don't think it's JC's, but it's a common technique, but it's the way that I've always done that. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so the next question is from David Blaine, and David said, what's your favourite magic effect if you had to choose one? I'd probably say Keymaster. If I could only ever pick one trick to do ever again, it would probably be Keymaster. Out of everything that I've ever created, that's the one that I'm probably most proud of, I think. Keymaster, yeah. And there's a lot coming with Keymaster in the short term, so watch out for it. There's a lot coming out with Keymaster. Okay, so the next question is from the Kitchen Magician, and he says, what's your favourite brand of playing cards aside from Bicycle? Cohorts. No, used to be Cohorts. Cohorts now in second place. Providence deck by 1914. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's my main go-to deck. What's the most expensive deck of cards you own? I don't know. I don't really buy expensive decks at all. I get like speciality decks and stuff, but I don't really buy any expensive decks. It's probably something from Theory 11, I imagine, but I really don't know. Any tips on cleaning your cards and how to make them last longer? No, because even when I'm using a speciality deck, I open it up, I take it to a gig, I have them signed, I have them ripped up, and then throw them in the bin, which is why I don't spend money on expensive cards. I'm not a card collector. For me, a pack of cards serves a purpose. It's a tool that allows me to do my job. I've got nothing against card collectors. I think it's amazing. It's just not something that I tend to do. Ryland's more of a card collector than me. He wants to get one of those new Velos by Vanishing Ink to display his cards. So this is probably more of a question for Ryland than me. But I can't tell you how to clean a deck of cards because I don't clean them. I just use them and chuck them in the bin. Okay, so the next question is from Sting, and Sting says, any news on the deck project with Lloyd? I think you're talking about the special deck project that me and Lloyd are doing that we can't talk about. Yeah, we're about 3/4 of the way there. We've been working on it for the last year. We're almost there. We're probably, we just need to iron out the last few details. I would say that this thing will see the light of day at some point in 2023. We want to get it right. We want to take our time on it to make sure it's perfect, but I'd say probably in about 2023. Okay, so the next question is by Sting again, and Sting says, hey Craig, one more thing. What's your happiest moment in Magic so far, and what's the worst moment in Magic for you? The happiest moment in Magic is seeing Ryland on Britain's Got Talent in the semi-finals, live, getting a standing ovation from the audience. 2 standing ovations. He got a standing ovation, then he got another standing ovation. That's the proudest moment in my life, like more than anything. I don't care what I achieve in my career. I don't care what heights I rise to. There's nothing that makes me prouder or happier than seeing my son at the age of 9 on national TV smash it. Like, as far as I'm concerned, very few things, if anything, are gonna top that. And if something does top it, I'll tell you right now, it'll probably involve Ryland. In terms of the worst moment in Magic, I'd have to say it's when me and my business partner split up, which I've never really talked about on this channel, and maybe at some point I will. But me and Russell Leeds used to run Slightly Unusual and Non-Stop Kids and all of my companies together. And then one day that ended. And, you know, we're really, really close friends. We hung out with each other. My kids hung out with his kids. And although we're friendly, we're no longer friends like we were. And you know, when I realized that that partnership was ending completely and it was irreparable and it was never going back, it was like a breakup. I mean, I've broke up, you know, with people in the past. I've had, you know, I was engaged many, many years ago to a girl called Ruth, and that we ended up splitting up. And what happened with Russell felt a little bit like a breakup, and it was really hurt for a very long time. And you know, I lost a friend that day, and that was not fun. So I'd probably say that, or the moment where I decided to leave the magic community all those years ago. I was in such a bad place at that point with Red and the Wayne Dobson stuff and the Jeff McBride stuff and everything else that was going on at the time. I was battered left, right, and centre. And I walked away and I said to myself, I'm never coming back into this business again. I'm never coming back into this industry again. I'm never coming back into this community again. I can't do it. I can't do it for my mental health. I cannot do it. And that never happened. And luckily, it took me several years, many, many years, but I did come back, and now I'm having a blast. But at that point right there, that was a very low point for me. I felt like just walking away and never coming back. So there you go. A massive high and a massive low. So there you go, guys. That's another Q&A in the bag. Do me a favour. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. You want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and join the Netrix. It's www.thenetrix.com. You can go and join right now, and you can get access to everything. I think we've got over 200 tricks and about another 100 sleights, and more is added every week. On Monday we've got a coin magic upload special. We've got I think 5 or 6 coin videos going up on Monday, along with a load of other business related stuff as well. There is so much coming on the Netrix, and I'm super excited for you guys to see it. So make sure you check it out, www.thenetrix.com. I'm going to be back later on this evening with a review show special, and yeah, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.